I was America's sweetheart teenager. I didn't have a clue about what being a teenager was.
Take 4, take 5, take 6, and there I am, and now I'm sweating, I have a rash, I'm like dying that I don't know my lines, and it's never happened before.
I probably was asked when I was a kid, hey, where's your bear? Probably 10,000 times.
You've got it easy. How dare you complain? How dare you say you have problems?
They're the kids who play the kids in films and on TV. They're cute, funny, famous, and rich. They seem like the luckiest kids in the world.
I was short, fat, with red hair and freckles, and I took 2 cheerleaders to the prom.
$90,000 right in my hand. It didn't last long.
You get a lot of attention, you get anything you want, pretty much. You get money and you get, it's like anybody's dream. It's like winning the lottery or something.
They make more in a week than most adults make in a year, but the money's not always there when they turn 18, and neither are the jobs.
Grim reality, the day the show quits, is that a lot of those people won't take your phone call, and if you're not prepared to face that, it can be a very, very bad life.
People used to come up to me on the street in Hollywood when I was a teenager and say, "You used to be so darling. My, how you've changed."
They got what they needed from me, and now it's over. And those are very tough pills to swallow when you are a young person.
What's it really like going through childhood and adolescence in a media fishbowl? And is there something inherently contradictory about being a child and being a star?
I can't comment on what it's like to grow up as a kid in America, because I didn't grow up as a kid in America. I grew up as a kid of America, that America was watching.
I'm Hayley Mills. This is Child Stars, their story.
I started in the business when I was 3 months old, and it was my idea. I came out and I said, "Mom, I want to be a star."
At birth, everyone is a child star. A fascinating little performer with a natural ability to entertain and charm. Most kids can steal a scene from the most polished actor. Kids are innately dramatic, transparent, and brimming with an emotional honesty that makes them fascinating to watch. Hollywood, of course, has always made the most of the special appeal of kids, plucking out a handful in each generation who are able to captivate on cue and turning them into major stars, child stars.
Haley? And here?
Child star.
All over your face.
There's something unsettling about the very phrase.
You'll be growing out of your nose.
Those two words, it's almost like an oxymoron. They shouldn't even go together, because it's like, if you're a child, you have no business being a star.
When I hear the phrase child star, I think of other people, actually.
I think of somebody who, whose life has kind of fallen apart, and who, I think immediately of the cliches of child star, and then I think, wait, I'm a child star.
I don't want to be named as an ex-child star, because that's always what they always say. Oh, today I'm the ex-child star, and such, it's like, which means that you have no other plan in your life to work ever again. That's just it.
Person who works like a dog, does everything everybody tells him to do. And when the rap is called, the grown-ups go get drunk, and the kid does homework. That's child star.
The image of the child star is largely the stuff of tabloids. Kids who had everything and blew it all. Victims, survivors. The cliches, as always, hold a grain of truth. The arrests, addictions, and suicides of former child stars are well known. But the cliches also oversimplify. The fact is, being 9 years old with a hit TV show is a complex experience. Part joyride, part labor camp. A perverse mix of blessing and curse that affects different kids in different ways.
It was great. I had a golf cart at 10. I in a motorized vehicle. It was a wonderful. My older brother was David Cassidy. Life was wonderful. Real life had some drama to it, but being the guy from the Partridge Family was and has always been a good thing.
When you've got the big shots putting their arm around you and patting you on the back and telling you how big you're gonna be, you know, that's an intoxicant. And boy, for a kid, if it can, you know, if you can get drunk off that intoxicant.
When the kid is no longer needed, the parents have the money and they run away and it's run out. Or they've eaten up all the money so they don't need the kid anymore. The kid's not working anyway. And you have a pretty sad, lonesome, depraved kid.
I was 14, 15. I was going into nightclubs already. Being served, drinking. You know, I could get into any club I wanted. There was not, I don't really think there was one club I couldn't get into by the age of 15, 16. Every club. And I didn't look, I looked 14.
It was magical for me. I felt blessed, you know. I felt blessed to be involved with what I was doing, you know. Working with those people, I felt great as a kid to be taken seriously as an adult.
Yeah, being a child actor isn't for everybody, you know, and it's difficult and it's trying, but you know, it doesn't increase your propensity to commit crimes.
I think they use that sometimes. I think if they goof up and they go on drugs and things, they say, it was because I was a child star and it was horrible on the set. But I don't believe that.
This ability to amuse people and manipulate them is a survival mechanism. And what makes you special at 12 can also be a burden when you're 22.
By the time I was 15, I felt like a senior citizen. I felt I'd been retired. I was old, very old, and I felt very old.
Quiet! And action!
Certainly child stars do have issues. Imagine growing up separated and estranged from other kids. A little adult who has more to talk about with a 30-year-old electrician or grip than someone your own age. Or having a semi-professional relationship with your own parents, who may depend on the money a child actor earns to pay the bills. Or having work at the very center of childhood, projecting images of innocence while suppressing any childish impulse that gets in the way of the job. Imagine growing up in reverse, launching, developing, even retiring from a career by the age of 18, front-loading the normal work curve of life, then dropping out to try to find yourself as a kid.
I believe the perception is that, oh, these are children. They'll forget about this and go on with their lives. They'll have some fun, and then they can move on to the next thing. But it's a Jell-O mold, okay? You're making this little being a show business entity. Okay, this is what you are creating.
I've got a hot date coming. Get out.
What does an unnatural amount of attention, money, celebrity, and stress do to a child? In what ways does it jumpstart a kid's development? In what ways does it retard psychological and emotional growth? And what about school, and parents, and siblings, and boyfriends and girlfriends? To find out what growing up as a child star is really like, we interviewed nearly 36 former child stars, all of them famous as kids in films and on TV. And we organized a round table in which child stars from 5 generations could get together and compare notes.
Kim Victoria Fields. Thank you. Anna Marie Patty Duke Pierce.
William Gray III.
Our participants included Melissa Gilbert from Little House on the Prairie, Tony Dow, best known as Wally from Leave It to Beaver, Margaret O'Brien, an MGM star during the studio's glory years in the 1940s, Paul Peterson, who played Jeff Stone on The Donna Reed Show, Kim Fields, Tootie from Facts of Life, Patty Duke of The Miracle Worker and The Patty Duke Show, Billy Gray, Bud from Father Knows Best, and Sarah Gilbert from The Roseanne Show. The round table sparked a free flow of memories and opinions about growing up as a child star. touching on everything from drugs to rejection to the pros and cons of a sexy image.
I feel so badly for Dominique Swain, who is going to repeat this Lolita experience that Sue Lyon, who's our contemporary, went through. I mean, what is it when at 14 you become an object of lust worldwide?
Let me tell you about that.
What? I was never Bud, so that was helpful. I mean, I was smoking grass before I got the part, you know. And
I didn't even know they had grass then. I was so sheltered. I never saw anybody use anything. True.
As a child?
Never.
you know, I have never seen anybody.
Never
on the
saw
set
anybody
smoking
drinking
dope
or
doing
smoking.
cocaine.
No,
I didn't smoke and work. No, that was just. Wish I could have, but I knew I couldn't.
Possible. The highs and lows of this industry are a perfect playground for someone with a genetic mental illness such as depression or manic depression. I mean, we're working an 18-hour day, drink some more coffee. You know? And the rejection. You are so good. Tony, you are so good. You are the best there is. Oh, God, print that.
See you.
Bye.
Yeah, your life is in a fishbowl. You know, and sometimes your time isn't your own or your life isn't your own. But if that's the trade-off for this money and meeting famous people and doing what I love doing and getting a great education, and if I can keep my head on straight about it and the people around me can, then that's a pretty good trade-off. But that's a very big if.
That's the big if.
That's the big if. You can do that.
That's the rub.
That's the rub, all right. How to balance the two very different and in some ways incompatible realities of being a child and being a star.
Having to deal with fame at an early age, having to deal with making a lot of money, having to deal with being treated in an unreal way, an over-positive way, not a real way. We've all had to deal with that. So at the core, it's all the same, and now you get to see how it manifests itself. And it's fascinating.
Watching little performers at the beginning of their careers is also fascinating. Up next, auditions and the discovery of the child star. Child stars, their story will return on A&E.
Cleaning your teeth, protecting against plaque and tartar buildup, and prevention of gingivitis is crucial. You got that, Ellie Mae? Regular use of Dentabone has been clinically shown to reduce gingivitis. Just look at the difference it made in these two dogs. I recommend Dentabone from Pedigree.
Officers continuing the pursuit on the ground. The truck is crossing all lanes. He's turning off. He's spinning out. Patrol units have a block. Suspect moving. Suspect moving.
Can't get enough peanuts? Get a Payday. Sweet caramel and tons of salty peanuts.
There's some big news from Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury dealerships. Saturday service hours. Now it's even easier to get the service you need and the convenience you want. Come in for great deals on batteries, shocks, tires, and more. And factory-trained technicians who know your vehicle best. So for the right people, the right parts, and always the right prices, how does Saturday work for you? Quality care on Saturday at participating Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury dealerships.
To be competitive in music, I depend on the freshest information. Word on the street is this thing is really buzzing. I'm waiting on that press release. When I get back, I want to review the sales figures and get the contract out right away. I don't want to miss out on the opening weekend.
When it comes to his investments, Steve Gottlieb chooses CSFB Direct so he can keep up with the market through real-time news and quotes and receive price alerts on all his favorite stocks.
If you want to be in the game, you got to keep your finger on the pulse.
People who know CSFB Direct.
I know, you're thinking, what do I know about biography hitmakers? Well, I am in a band. Rick Springfield is a singer who acts, and I'm an actor who sings. Patti LaBelle and I are both from Philly. Nugent is a killer with a guitar and a crossbow, and well, 2 out of 3 is not bad.
Biography Hitmakers Week begins tomorrow, only on A&E.
Both these guys woke up with a cold this morning, but not to worry. There are 2 very special Tylenol cold formulas for adults and for children. Each with the proven trusted relief to feel better fast.
Can we get sick again tomorrow, Dad?
Tylenol Cold. Take comfort in our strength.
Hey, how was your business trip to Chicago?
Good. How was your week off?
Great. My friends and I went to the beach.
Really?
Yeah, we rented from Hertz.com. Found their best rates, special offers, and terrific discounts because I'm a AAA member.
Maybe we should try it this weekend.
We.
I'm Hayley Mills. We now return to child stars, their story. Forgotten today, this little girl was once the most famous child star in the world. Baby Peggy, as she was called in the 1920s, starred in over 100 two-reelers by the time she was 3 years old. At her peak, she commanded a salary of $1 million a movie.
I got handed keys to the city, every city in the United States, and was made honorary mayor for a day. It didn't turn my head, it was a drag. You know, I got tired of keys to the city. They all looked alike. The mayors all looked alike after a while.
Hollywood has been creating fabulously successful and frequently troubled child stars since movie making began at the turn of the century. Baby Peggy and Jackie Coogan were the biggest child stars of the silent era. The waif-like Coogan was the #1 box office star in the world when he made The Kid with Charlie Chaplin in 1924. By the end of the decade, parents were pouring into Hollywood from all over the country, convinced that their kids had what it took to become child stars. 140,000 kids auditioned for the Our Gang comedy series in the 1920s and 30s. Only 41 landed a contract.
I must have a Rolls Royce and a maid at once.
The biggest child star of the 30s and of all time was Shirley Temple. Completely comfortable in front of the camera from the age of 3, Shirley Temple was an astonishingly gifted little performer whose talent and charm cheered up a country that was mired in the Depression. From 1935 to 1939, from the age of 7 to 11, Shirley Temple was the most popular movie star in the world. Her success had a huge impact on Hollywood, paving the way for the golden age of the child star. By the end of the 30s, every studio had a stable of charismatic kids who virtually grew up on a back lot. MGM boasted the brightest roster, one that included Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland, Elizabeth Taylor, and Margaret O'Brien, who won an Oscar in 1944.
My mother said, walk very sedately to the stage, but I forgot and I sort of ran up to the stage. But I was really more interested in seeing Bob Hope, because he was one of my favorites, than getting the Oscar at that time.
Television, of course, created a new wave of child stars. Kids who came into the living room every week and became part of the national family. Shows like Father Knows Best, The Patty Duke Show, Dennis the Menace, My Three Sons, The Andy Griffith Show, and Leave It to Beaver gave birth to a new kind of child star.
We grew up in people's living room. When people went to a theater, it was more of an experience. When you watch someone grow up in your living room, you have a unique bonding with them.
If child stars reveled in the eternal childhood of sitcoms, they came of age in the explicit realism that has dominated movie making in recent decades.
People think that young actors somehow weren't actually acting or weren't conscious of what they were doing, that the director somehow brought it out of them. And that's something that I've always thought was a dumb argument. I mean, you know, you can't memorize lines and do an accent and do these scenes without knowing what you're doing.
Jodie Foster, Ricky Schroeder, Tatum O'Neal, Brooke Shields, Drew Barrymore, Macaulay Culkin, Haley Joel Osment are a few of the kids who have added to the luster and allure of the child star phenomenon. In the year 2000, the allure seems stronger than ever. According to the Screen Actors Guild, 7,500 kids under 18 are working in the business today, collectively earning over $50 million.
Is his looks all right for her?
How do kids get started in show business? Do they push their parents, or do their parents push them? Do they work their way up through classes and auditions, or are they just discovered in storybook Hollywood fashion? And what is it about the successful ones that separates them from the rest?
I've never been deluded about this. I got started in the business because Mom was bigger than me. It's real simple, you know.
But I didn't have that experience.
No, okay, well, now, you know,
yeah, and I didn't either.
Your sister sort of blazed the trail, too. So there are different experiences.
I mean, make no mistake, I didn't at the age of 2 stand up and say, I'm going to be in commercials now.
Precisely.
But I did put on shows in the living room every day. Anytime someone would come over, I'd start singing and kissing and doing my Shirley Temple imitation and dancing the same steps for her.
I said I wanted it. I saw my mother on Broadway, and that was it, brother. I was gone.
Well, I went around saying I'm going to be a little movie star because I'm going to ride in the Christmas parade in Hollywood. That's what I wanted to do, be Santa Claus.
Wow.
No, I didn't want it at all. I didn't like it at all. And I was happily seduced.
Yeah, I thought it was...
Diana Sarah Carey, otherwise known as Baby Peggy, was probably too young to know how she felt about becoming a world-famous child star in the 1920s. Peggy got her start when she was just 20 months old, catching the eye of a Hollywood director while visiting a studio with her mom.
The director had been scouring Hollywood for 6 months for a 2-year-old child, and he bumped into me accidentally and stood there watching because I never moved. I didn't have a doll or a toy or anything, and I just sat there. And at 2 years old, he couldn't believe it. And he said, does she always mind like that? And Mother said, oh, yes. He said, I'd like to use her in a picture. And that's how he discovered me.
Don't let them get to you, Danny. They're just jealous.
They needn't be. Personal magnetism is a gift.
The legend is that my mother and I were at the Copper Penny in Burbank, and apparently at 4 I was quoting Thoreau to my mother when a head popped up over the counter and said, does that little boy have an agent? If not, he should. And we looked up and it was Richard Chamberlain. And so I blame all of this on Dr. Kildare, because we went out and got an agent that day.
How I got started in the industry was a pretty unique story. I was a swimmer at a very young age. My mother was just absolutely paranoid, I guess, that we were going to drown, and enrolled us in a swim school. And there was an agent there one day, and she took a liking to me. And that's how I got into the industry through water. I swam my way in.
I was 2 years old, and I was being babysat on the set of the Andy Griffith Show. My older brother was working on the show, and my mom took me down to the set. The director saw me and said, he's too cute, we gotta put him in a bit. And that day, they put me in a sequence and with Don Knotts, and I guess I took to it.
Just about every kid seems cute and expressive enough to star in movies or on TV, but there's only room for a few at the top. And competition for even the smallest jobs is intense.
I'm Alexandra Stiers, I'm 14. Jeremy Jones, I'm 10 years old. Hi, I'm Rachel Hanson, 9 years old. Brittany Stiers, and I'm 13.
According to the Screen Actors Guild, the typical child actor today has to go on 49 auditions before landing his or her first job.
Give me a script, and I could memorize it very quickly, and I not only could memorize it, I knew what I was saying. Even if I didn't know, it sounded like I knew what I was saying.
I never auditioned and didn't get a role, so it was like, it was just smooth sailing.
I was the only species of color in there. And I just remember thinking, all these pretty white girls, let me go home. Please, please, please take me home.
What was the dress you wore for? Oh, I had a red dress from Jarrett's with little white flowers. Actually, I wore it and Leave It to Beaver, special. And then I had a navy blue one. And it would be a choice. Would wear the navy blue one on one interview or the red one on the other. And without fail, if I wore that red dress, I'd get the job.
So remember that.
Remember that.
I went on my very first audition for The Homecoming, which was A Christmas Story, and it became the pilot for the Waltons.
Well, that's for sure.
I got the pilot, and then less than a year later, we started doing this series.
Where does that leave me? Nobody ever even remembers my name. I'm just that other Walton girl.
My very first audition got me 12 years of work. It's unheard of. My dad always described it as buying your first ticket to the Irish sweepstakes and winning. And it kind of was like that.
The producers of Leave It to Beaver had seen me, as I say, several times, and so when I walked in, they noticed that I was very fidgety, and they said, what's the matter? Don't you want to be here? And I was dressed in my Cub Scout uniform, and I said, no, actually, I have a Cub Scout meeting, and I'd really rather be at that. And they said, all right, you can go then. So when I went out, my mother said, that probably wasn't the wisest thing to say, because we've been here, you know, several times, and now they're going to think that you don't want to work as an actor. So we went home that night. I went to my Cub Scout meeting on time, and they called that night and said I had the part of the Beaver because they would rather have a boy that wanted to be at a Cub Scout meeting than be an actor.
Mr. Cosby was in the room, and I'm reading with the casting director, rolling my eyes and doing all of the precocious, you know, child actor stuff that I'd see on television. I looked up at Mr. Cosby, and he just looked at me. He said, now, would you really talk to your father like that? And I said, no. And he said, well, I don't want to see that on this show. So I'm thinking, okay, here I just blew, you know, this major audition, and, you know, they let me go out and work on it and come back. And when I came back, I totally, you know, I did a total about face with the character. And one of the things that Jay Sandridge had always said to me is the thing that got me that gig was the fact that I knew how to take direction well.
Maybe you can just accept who I am and love me anyway. Because I'm your son.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Kids dream of getting big-time roles, but don't really have a clue about how a role can influence and shape the rest of their lives.
I went on 3 more interviews because we were going to move to Hawaii. And one of them was Tarzan, one of them was The Musketeers, and one of them was Leave It to Beaver. And I got all 3 of them and chose to do Leave It to Beaver. I wanted to do Tarzan, but you know, Leave It to Beaver sounded like it was a good, solid show. And, you know, and when you're 12 years old, 11 years old, you don't make those decisions. You sit down at the malt shop and you got a hamburger and some fries, and what do you think? Yeah, that sounds like fun. And there goes your life.
Your life, your mother's life, your father's life, your sisters' and brothers' lives. Having a kid with a career can throw all normal family relationships out of whack. Up next, parents, siblings, and the child star. Child stars, their story will return.
See the world revolving around you, only on Celebrity.
What if you could reverse an effect of aging on your dog's immune system? Feed him IAMS Active Maturity Formula after age 5. It's the first dog food shown to help restore vital cells in his immune system. So you can shape what tomorrow brings. IAMS. Good for today, good for tomorrow, good for life.
Need a break? Nah, I'm good. Come on, you've been watching 225 channels, 12 hours straight. Take a break. All right.
We love this stuff, even more than you do. Now get the best in home entertainment with a $200 mail-in rebate.
Glide away with the A&E special presentation that takes you to the pinnacle of style, power, and victory.
It's contagious. You kind of think, whoa!
Where sport meets art and fierce rivals meet more than just their match. Fire on Ice, next Sunday at 8/7 Central on A&E.
Chrysler minivans continue to receive more and more and more awards. Now it's time to reward you with the Chrysler and Jeep Rewards Program. Where now for just $279 a month, returning Daimler Chrysler lessees with exceptional credit can lease the luxuriously equipped Chrysler Town & Country LX. So reward yourself today. Drive home one of our award winners. It's better than taking home a trophy. See your Chrysler Jeep Superstore today.
The digital divide is the distance we allow between those who have the power of information and those who don't. In AmeriCorps, we're working to bridge that gap so that all of us can get to a better place. We're going around the world, on the web. In AmeriCorps, it's not can you make a difference, it's where. It's your world. It's your chance to make it better.
I'm Hayley Mills. We now return to child stars, their story. Former child stars disagree about a lot of things, but on one point they are unanimous. Parents are the wild card in the life of the child star.
We were just about to talk about if there was any one special tidbit of advice someone ever gave you.
In terms of, as a kid?
As a kid, as an actor.
Somebody said, save your money. I remember I heard that.
I heard several people say that, but I heard a lot of people
say that. Did it work? Did you do it? No.
Ricky Sorensen, the man who played Boy in the Tarzan movies, I asked him that very question. He said, you got to pick your parents with care.
I always tell, kids that want to go into show business, I don't see anything wrong with kids going into show business if they have two stable parents.
I did not have a day as a child actor from the age of 2 to the age of 17 years, 11 months that I didn't have my mom or dad on the set with me every day. And I would follow that rule.
When a young kid, is working a lot, oftentimes it's the parents who kind of trip out first. And if the parents are taking the money and buying Mercedes-Benzes and big homes, then they're not really there to give any guidance to the child.
What do you mean, stop playing? Shut up and deal.
Every kid can use a little guidance, especially a Hollywood kid who begins to think of him or herself as a little star.
My mom told me, clean your room. Well, that's what we have it made for. After I got up off the floor from the backhand that I received, Mom had called the set. And she called the executive producer and said, Kim will not be coming into work today or any day because this whole thing she can't deal with. So thank you very much. We've had a lovely time doing Facts of Life. And he said, okay, Chip, I understand. Tell Kim it's been wonderful, but that's fine. I was like, what? Cleaned my room, went to the set, but she had that backup because, again, they that's how they understood that if you don't do that, that's when you have, all the horror stories.
Sometimes parents are too involved. A recent psychological study found that kids have worse relationships with their parents if their parents are also acting as managers.
I happened to be flying with another former child actress who I won't say the name, but this girl was in a corner just trying to be herself and, grab a few minutes, and her mother was passing headshots around the plane. I thought, I am going to pop the emergency hatch. Am I going to make it to New York? And I could just feel this stifle, this oxygen being sucked out of the plane. And sure enough, we were walking around Manhattan that night. And the former child actress said, I got to talk to you about my mother. You went through this, right? I said, we all did.
You know what my mom said about this? She said, how on earth could I have competed with Donna Reed? And I understand. Isn't that an amazing thing to think?
Did you answer her?
There is no answer because, of course, Donna Reed was Donna Reed.
Of course, yeah.
And even though my mother shared precisely the same Iowa background, in fact, adjacent counties born the same year, she was not Donna Reed.
Come on, Dad. Don't I deserve a second chance?
Yes, son, of course you do.
Parents, of course, can't always measure up to their TV counterparts, and child stars sometimes face a brutal irony, being part of an ideal family on TV and a real family that is coming apart at the seams.
Different Strokes was a groundbreaking show, first of all. It was the first time that two little black kids was hugging some white man saying, Daddy. So it was an all-American family, but it was an all-American, different kind of family, but it was the perfect family. You sat down and talked about your problems. You know, if Willis was doing something wrong, Conrad would sit down and have that heart-to-heart father talk with his son. Now, son, let's talk about what's going on, which is supposed to happen in the family. Not bam, bang, boom, you know, not that kind of stuff. My father was a raging alcoholic, you know, and a raging alcoholic's behavior is just out of control. And the time that it was safe was when I was at work. That's when it was safe. When I got home, it was like, you know, living with a pit bull that, you know, if you said the wrong thing or moved the wrong way, you may get attacked.
What's the trouble, son?
Billy Gray belonged to one of the most idealized of TV families, starring as young Bud in Father Knows Best. Off the set, he barely knew his real dad.
My father was not the Father Knows Best type. He was a monster, actually, come right down to it. He had acquired syphilis as a young boy, probably in his early teens, and it was never treated. I don't know whether they could treat it or not in those days, but it wasn't treated, and he eventually went mad. I never really compared my life to the life that was being portrayed in Father Knows Best, because it was a portrayal. It wasn't anything that bears comparison, because it was a fantasy.
Child star fathers, in particular, can have a hard time dealing with the fact that their kid is the real breadwinner in the family.
My father expressed it pretty well. He said, you know, Paul, I was very proud when you were introduced as my son, but I got nervous when I started to be introduced as your father. In Hollywood, the golden rule is, he who has the gold rules. I was making 3 times what my father made when I was 12 years old. So guess whose concerns took precedence in my family?
My father was called Mr. Baby Peggy to his face and behind his back. He had given up his, so to speak, image as head of the family and his manhood. And the only way he could please my mother was by improving my career. And so if I didn't perform, it wasn't just me that paid the price, he paid the price.
To assert his authority, Mr. Baby Peggy insisted that his daughter had no special talent other than an exceptional ability to take direction, that is, to follow his orders. He was the one pulling the strings, and he liked to demonstrate his role in public. One time, while Peggy was filming Peg of the Mounties in Yosemite Valley, the demonstration backfired.
My father took me up on this little stage, and there was about 300 people there, and he started putting me through my paces, which was, this is the way Peggy registers fear and anger and allure and all these different things. And then he said, so I will show you that she can, so he said, cry. And I had never said no to my father in my entire life. But my head hurt, I'd worked all day, and for some reason, I was cranky. And so I just said, no, I won't. Well, this isn't just a child saying no to her parent. This is mortifying my father in front of all of his friends, whom he has convinced that he is the power behind the throne here. And he picked me up and paddled me and put me back on my feet, and then he said, now laugh. And I was crying, but I laughed. I've never told this to anybody else, but after that was over, he took me into the car and really spanked me hard, very bad, locked me in the car. I couldn't get out. And he said, don't you ever say no to me again. As long as you live, don't you ever say no.
Saying no to a director on a show involving hundreds of people and millions of dollars can also be a scary experience. Coming up, the high-stakes, hard-working childhood of child stars. Child stars, their story will return.
Vacation truth number 22. Everyone arrives at the car rental place at the same time. At Alamo, we know. With new Quick Rent, anyone can rent online, skip the counter, and miss the masses. Drive happy.
All right. Put a smile on your face. Make the weather better. Put a smile on your face. What you wanna do, say what you wanna do.
Can't get those disgusting stains out of your kitchen counter? Don't replace it, zap it! Is that tile hallway so dingy and dirty you're ready to rip it out? Don't replace it, zap it! Has your bathroom become so embarrassing you're ready for a remodel? Don't replace it, zap it! Presenting new and improved Zap, the professional strength restorer that's guaranteed to make porcelain, fiberglass, tile and grout, and real metals like brass, copper, and cast iron all look brand new again or your money back. Zap is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Just spray it on, let it sit, and wipe it off. And in just minutes, your surfaces are back like new. Zap is a restorer, not a cleaner. Ordinary cleaners only work on surface dirt. But Zap actually penetrates stains to restore surfaces to their original new shine.
My bathtub was looking so horrible and dingy that I was going to replace it. It was going to cost me $1,500. But I found Zap. All I did was spray it on, wait a few minutes, it restored it to new condition.
Watch as we use Zap on this old brass fixture. In just seconds, it's restored like new. Zap with its fresh wintergreen scent works on toilet bowls, rust, and hard water stains. In fact, Zap is so effective it's guaranteed to remove any stain from any of these surfaces or your money back.
The bathroom was in such bad shape we didn't know what to do. I thought I'd have to replace the whole thing. And then I discovered Zap. I sprayed it on, I wiped it off, and there it was, completely restored.
Replacing these surfaces could cost hundreds, even thousands of dollars. But why replace it when you can restore it with new and improved Zap Concentrated Restorer for only $19.95? Call now and we'll also include a free Zap sprayer attachment, a free bottle of Zap Maintainer, plus 2 industrial Zap pads. But that's not all. Call in the next 5 minutes and we'll double your order of Zap absolutely free. Operators are standing by, so call the toll-free number or send check or money order to Zap, Box 1234, Northridge, California, 91328. Remember, call in the next 5 minutes to receive your 2 free bottles of Zap. Order now.
I'm a sitting judge of the New York State Criminal Court. I've committed a terrible blunder. A young girl is dead because of me. It's the worst mistake of my life, and I don't know how I'll ever atone for it. But I don't need some political hack in judicial robes beating up on me over something I can't do anything about. It's over.
It hasn't begun.
Henry.
He'll go down. The only question is, how many of us is he going to take with him?
Reckless.
I don't want contracts.
Did it ever occur to you that I might be standing in the middle of my worst nightmare?
Has its price.
What gives you the right to decide when and how you'll get justice?
This January.
Arrest that man.
You let a killer go free. That's the story.
From filmmaker Sidney Lumet.
Don't you dare try to turn this into a racial thing, or I will slap you across your face right here in front of everybody.
An A&E original series.
What's law got to do with justice?
We're talking about a kid's life. Now you listen to me. You are not to go near her.
It is not robbery one if you didn't have the gun. I'm scared, all right?
Where crime.
I want every gun up here! Now!
I'm the hostage negotiator. Give me the situation.
And the courts collide.
He wants justice.
I will not let him make this a First Amendment issue.
Even in war, that act is murder.
I'm throwing the book at this guy.
Are you sleeping with him?
How dare you? Who the hell do you think you are?
I only know if you try to rescue everybody, then you're the one who ends up getting lost.
Why am I here? I didn't do anything. Why am I here? All rise.
Henry.
Prosecutor, not a priest.
Reckless.
Putting her away is not justice. Anytime you disagree with my judgment,
Has its price.
all you've got to do is pull the trigger.
100 Center Street. Mondays 9, 8 Central on A&E.
I'm Hayley Mills. We now return to Child Stars, their story.
Well, what's the problem?
Money.
Oh?
Why should I have to work so hard just to make a buck?
It may be fun, it may be glamorous, it may be satisfying and enriching, but whatever else it is or isn't, being a child actor in films or TV is stressful work.
Hurry up, we're losing the light, we're losing the light, we're losing the light, we're losing the light.
You do that well. I didn't know you were an AD.
I noticed that I was over 50 when recently I worked, and they said they were losing the light, and I said it'll be back. I'm going as fast as I can.
You got it? So you grab your jacket, go to the center, and then come out.
I'm making them.
Work is perhaps the overwhelming fact of childhood for the child star. The memory that comes up most powerfully and most often. Baby Peggy, working before there were child labor laws, supported her entire family from the age of 2. She nearly died of pneumonia after a year and a half of non-stop 10 to 12-hour shooting days, and her director had a nervous breakdown.
My mother went on record with an interview saying that Peggy doesn't even know what she's doing. It's just like playing to her. She doesn't even know that there's a camera there, you know. Well, that's a lie. She wasn't on the set, of course. My father worked with me. But I knew it was work.
When I was working, it was business. I wasn't allowed, you know, like at lunchtime, I wasn't allowed to play, run around and get dirty. Couldn't get, you know, sweaty or ruin the makeup or, you know, get the clothes dirty or what have you. I think by having contact with kids that aren't in the business, you get to see the world from a different perspective. I always saw it from one perspective. And the number one thing in that perspective was, you know, you're going to work, you're going to be a trooper. And I was. I mean, there were times when I was physically ill, but yet I worked.
The irony is, people from the outside looking in, I would bring them to the set sometime. Yeah, oh, you're the luckiest guy in the world. You're on a TV series, and so I say, hey, you know, come to work with me. It's, you know, you want to see what it's really like. Got to get up at like 6 o'clock, be there at 7. I do my makeup, and they'd come down, and let me tell you, by 10:30, they're ready to go home. They're bored. They go, this is what you do? It's, you know, for one scene, they'd be lighting it for an hour and a half, and you know, you'd finally get up there and you do your lines, and 5 minutes later, it's over.
Jeff, do you feel all right?
I guess so.
Let me look at your face.
What's the matter? Did he have to wash behind his ears? All of us have heard this phrase 1,000 times. There are 1 million kids who'd take your job. I don't care if you got a fever. Get up and go. Well, it's so absurd. When the adult stars that I worked with, Donna Reed, Cary Grant, you know something? If they got sick, production stopped. That's what insurance is for. But I never missed a day on the Donna Reed show.
My young friend, you've got chicken pox.
There was always this thing sort of drilled in, don't start up. Don't start up. Don't start up. Don't say anything. Don't make any waves. Don't slow things down. Don't cause any problems. And everything that, for me, that was associated with that, and it was all work related, even though it was a great environment, was, you know, if you're angry and you can't work, you're in trouble. If you're sad and you can't work, that's not good. If you're, you know, you're hungry and you can't work, whatever it was, as long as it meant can't work, it was bad.
Not being prepared for work was very bad, as Melissa Gilbert found out while trying to do a scene with Little House on the Prairie co-star and director Michael Landon.
Take 1, take 2, take 3, take 4, take 5, take 6, and there I am, and now I'm sweating, I have a rash, I'm like dying that I don't know my lines, and it's never happened before. And Michael cut the camera, and he looked at me, and he said, you don't know your lines, do you? And I just lost it. I just started weeping. I'm so sorry, I just couldn't learn. And much to his credit, I have to say, he went, calm down, come here, give me a script, just breathe here for a minute. Everybody go get some coffee and grab a bite to eat. I'm going to help her learn her lines. Go. Just go away. So we sat down and we were looking at the script and we're going over the thing, and he looked at me and he said, this is never happening again, is it? And I said, oh, no, I'm never doing this again. He said, don't.
Who said they had to go to, their father died and they had to go to work that afternoon?
Me.
Well, ouch.
Yeah. Now, my father had not been with the family for a few years. But nonetheless, in my head, my father was the be-all and end-all. And when word came that he died, the people I lived with, again, it was not the show, but the people who managed my career with whom I lived, decided that I was not going to his funeral. And I said, oh, yes, I am. Big, strong girl now. And there was an argument, and finally they relented and said, okay, you can go, but first you have to go get made up as the Patty character and dressed in the patty clothes, and you can go to the funeral, which was what I did. I was not allowed to speak to anyone.
It was a photo op.
It was a photo op, indeed. Again, I really can't fault anyone in the company for that, except maybe they could have said, gee, I understand her father died. Perhaps she'd like the afternoon off.
That's expecting an awful lot.
Baby Peggy, who began working at such an early age and put in such long hours, assumed that all kids had full-time jobs.
My sister and I were looking over the hedge in Beverly Hills one day and saw these youngsters next door having a party in the lawn and eating ice cream and sliding down slides and everything. And I asked my sister what they were doing, and she said, what do you think they're doing? They're having a party. And I said, but it's Monday, it's a work day. Who's taking care of their parents? And I was 4 years old because I knew to the marrow of my bones that it was me.
Some child stars apparently don't actually get to be children, just to play them in movies and on TV. Even those who want to behave like kids, to enjoy some of the ordinary rites of passage of growing up, don't always get the chance. John Provost of Lassie found that out when he tried to earn a little extra money by setting up a shoeshine stand outside his home.
My mom, when she saw what I was doing, came out and said, no, John, you can't do that. You can't be Tim. You know, it's like selling lemonade. You know, you can't do that. You're Timmy. You can't. No. But she let me do it to the crew. So, you know, I got to earn my extra money, but I couldn't do it in public. I had to do it on the set. But that was an eye-opener. I mean, you know, I couldn't have a newspaper route. You know, I didn't get to be a Boy Scout. I was an honorary Boy Scout. So, you know, there was a lot of that stuff.
Missing out on Boy Scout camp still bothers Johnny Whitaker of Family Affair, who spent months selling greeting cards door to door to raise money for the trip, and whose parents had promised him he could join, until he was offered the lead in a movie version of Tom Sawyer.
They asked me to be Tom Sawyer, and I said, no way! I've been working for 13 years. Well, 10 years. I want to go to Boy Scout camp. I'd made about $200 to go to Boy Scout camp. And screw you. I knocked on a hell of a lot of doors to make $200 to go to Boy Scout camp. You know, they were going to pay me a whole lot of money to do Tom Sawyer. And so Mom and Dad, now their psychology kind of backflipped on them. Wait a minute, you know, he's going to make a whole lot of money on this. We got to try and... So we made a deal that I would go to the first 3 days of Boy Scout camp. They'd have a helicopter come pick me up, which was so embarrassing, and take me to LAX, and then I'd fly out to Missouri to do Tom Sawyer.
There are some things about working in Hollywood that Tom Sawyer himself would have liked, like roaming around the fantasy land of a studio back lot. Up next, playtime for the child star. Child stars, their story will return on A&E.
The other day, I'm driving down Broadway when that pastrami on ride catches up with me. Heartburn big time. My passenger says, here, take a Zantac 75. I say, what are you, a doctor? And he says, yeah.
Zantac 75 relieves heartburn anywhere, anytime. It's the relief doctors trust.
A real gentleman, that doctor.
Now get 30 Rolaids tablets free when you buy specially marked packages of Zantac 75.
When you've got a serious leak, it's time for Leak Ender 2000. It fixes any leak fast, no matter what's leaking. Just spray it with Leak Ender 2000, and in minutes, the leak is sealed. Look, we'll cut this garden hose with a knife, then shut off the water and spray on Leak Ender 2000. Minutes later, the hose is as good as new. The cut is sealed. Leak Ender 2000 is a unique compound that fills and seals any crack or separation as it hardens. Why put up with gushing gutters, dripping drains, wet windowsills, and rain-soaked RVs? Leak Ender 2000 stops all those leaks, and it's yours for only $14.95. Call now and we'll double your order. We'll send you this giant-sized can at no extra charge. Order now.
To order your Leak Ender 2000, have your credit card ready and call toll-free 1-800-445-3883 or send check or money order for $14.95 plus $4 shipping to the address on your screen. Call 1-800-445-3883.
You know, to make it in rock and roll, you need one big hit. To make it on Biography, you need a story. Patti LaBelle. She went from choir girl to Lady Marmalade. Ted Nugent. Rick Springfield. Soap star, rock star. Be careful what you wish for. The hit makers you thought you knew.
Biography Hitmakers Week begins tomorrow, only on A&E.
What do you look for in an automotive dealership? First, the right dealership will offer you a quality product for the best price. Second, the right dealership will offer you the best selection around. And third, the right dealership will treat you with respect. At Red Holman Toyota, we know building solid relationships with customers will take us a long way. After all, we've been doing it for over 22 years. Red Holman Toyota will always do what's right.
What are you going to do this weekend? Don't know? Well, let me help you out. Go to your computer and type in inyourtown.com. There you'll find a website with information on just about anything you can think of. You can click on calendar for local events, lifestyle for entertainment, shopping for, well, that's kind of obvious, and community for everything else. Inyourtown.com. Where to go, what to do, how to get things done. In your town.
Timeless furniture using quality materials and old-fashioned construction. The Village Shopkeeper can be found online at villageshopkeeper.com.
I'm Hayley Mills. We now return to child stars, their story. From a kid's point of view, the best part about working as a child actor really isn't the money or the fame, but the chance to explore the fantasy land of a motion picture back lot.
There's all kinds of people walking around the lot, so, you know, you'll be playing football out in between the stages, and Rock Hudson will walk by, and he'll catch a pass and throw it back to you, and
I remember,
Steve McQueen will come in.
And tell him what you did to Steve McQueen.
Well, I don't remember what I did, but I remember he used to put his darn Jaguar, which was this
right in our baseball field. Right in our baseball field.
Yeah.
I pitched the ball, Tony hit it, it broke his window, and we were very afraid for the rest of the day. However, when he came out, he was very nice. He said, I have insurance and I've done things like this.
He didn't park there again, though, did he?
No, and now that I've read Steve McQueen's life, I can understand why he wasn't all that mad.
The coolest studio, especially for a kid in the 1950s, was the Disney back lot, home of Mickey Mouse and the Mouseketeers.
I was thrilled. 9 years old and working at Walt Disney Studios. There was no Disneyland, but it was like a dream. Going, you know, looking for Mickey Mouse, knowing that all these people worked on these wonderful cartoons.
There was ping pong tables out there, and everybody would play ping pong. There were basketball courts. It was a great lot when Walt was there. And he called me in to his office, and I'd never met him, you know, and I was like kind of nervous about that, because, hey, this was the guy who created Disneyland. You know, this Walt Disney I knew about. I walked into his office. Hello, Mr. Disney. Call me Uncle Walt. I swear to God, call me Uncle Walt. Okay, Mr. Disney. I want to ask you a question. Yeah? Are you having a good time? I've been seeing the dailies from Sammy the Seal, and looks great. And are you having fun? Yeah, I'm having a great time. Really great time. Good. You're doing great. Just wanted to say hi and ask you if you were having fun. And that was it.
Joining my grandmother once for lunch at the cafeteria, I was running up the steps to the cafeteria just as Walt Disney opened the door and was coming out. There he was, and he said, "Hi, Johnny." And I said, "Hi, Mr. Disney," and I was so thrilled that he knew my name. I couldn't wait to tell my grandmother. And so I ran, I found my grandmother standing in line. I said, "Grams, Walt Disney knows my name." She said, "Well, Johnny, it's on your chest."
Not all studio bosses were so kid-friendly. Jackie Cooper, one of the biggest stars of the 1930s, with movies like Skippy and The Champ, worked at MGM for the legendary Louis B. Mayer. When Cooper was just 9, his mother brought him along for contract talks with the chief.
They talked and talked, and I don't know what. I was walking around the room bored to death. I was 9 years old. And they finally agreed, okay, we're going to do the picture. My mother said, "Well, come on, Jackie, we're going to go now." And Mayer got off the platform behind his desk and came down and walked to the door with us, opened the door, and my mother said, "Say goodbye to Mr. Mayer." I put my hand out and said, "Goodbye, Mr. Mayer." And he grabbed me by the shirt and pulled me to him. And he said, "It's a good thing you came to work today, young man." And it scared me. I was 9 years old. I started to cry. I looked at him. I started to cry. And he let go of me like that. The crying bothered him so. And he said to my mother, "Get him out of here. Get him out of here."
After an experience like that, you need something to break the spell.
Directors, feeling the heat of a production deadline, could also get pretty nasty. Consider Alfred Hitchcock, who directed 7-year-old Billy Mooney in a memorable episode of Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Okay, fork over.
You know, I was fidgeting around on my mark. I wasn't being quite as still as they wanted. So Hitchcock gets out of his chair, which in itself is an event to see. You know, he always wore that black suit with the white shirt and a black tie, and he, you know, just to a little 7-year-old guy, he was he looked like the Blob. I mean, he was huge. He was always sweating, always. So he gets up very slowly, walks over to me. No one else could hear this. He leans down, and I swear to God, this is exactly what he said to me, with nothing changed over the years. This was 1961. This is exactly what he said to me. "If you don't stop moving about, I'm going to get a nail, and I'm going to nail your feet to your mark, and the blood will come pouring out like milk. So stop moving." And that's exactly what he said to me. And I'm like, huh? And I haven't seen the episode in a while. It's a really good show, but I haven't seen it in years and years and years. But I know there's just this one close-up in there where I'm like white and like... and obviously that was the moment.
Clint Howard also paled a few times while working with his co-star, the California black bear that played the lead in Gentle Ben.
The bear hurt me twice. One time he sat on me, and one time he gummed me. We did an episode where they thought it would be cute if he was pulling a little red wagon around. Like, so they had this bear hitched up to this half-assed harness. And, you know, he was lugging this little red wagon full of junk around. Now, that bear didn't want to do that. And here I am, once again, pulling on the bear's chain, trying to get him to hit his mark so we can get on. We were doing 10 pages of dialogue a day. And I guess I pulled a little too hard, and he ended up kind of rearing around and rolling over on me and sitting on me and staying on me. It wasn't like he sat on me and then got up. He sat on me like he was, like, mad at me.
Crying on cue has always been a big part of an actor's job, especially for kids who have to do it a lot. Making sure they cry real tears has brought out the worst in some directors, as Lucas Haas found out while shooting The Lady in White.
He wanted to somehow make sure I was going to cry, I guess. So he took this picture of my mom and came into my trailer and started ripping it up and telling me that she was dead, saying, you know, "Your mom is dead. How does that make you feel? You know what? Your mom is dead." You know, and I was sitting there like about to crack up. You know, I'm like, what the hell? You know, what is this guy doing? You know, it was so dumb. It like made it much harder to cry because it was so ridiculous.
Jackie Cooper's own uncle, who directed him in Skippy, his first film, resorted to a similar trick involving young Jackie's dog.
There was a scene where little Robert Coogan and I, we have a long, long walk down the street with about 3 pages of dialogue. I've got to be the guy crying all the way down. Well, it was one of those days I couldn't do it. The director said, "Where's that dog? Just go shoot him." So they had a prop man with somebody with a blank cartridge go behind this truck where they had taken my dog and fired the gun. They said, "No, you're not going to be bothered by it." I said, "What did you do?" "Now, shut up. You got to do the scene. That's more important. Get in there." And we did the scene, crying. And then when it was over, he said, "Oh, Jackie, here, bring the dog, bring the dog." He says, I was only fooling. We just wanted to make you cry and this and that. Well, you can imagine then I couldn't stop crying, and I lost a lot of respect for my uncle from that day to this.
Michael Landon, who starred in and directed Little House on the Prairie, had a much smoother way of getting little Melissa Gilbert to cry.
he would walk really slowly and he'd put his arm around me, and then a few paces later he would kneel down in front of me and he'd have tears streaming down his face, and he'd look at me and he'd say, "Do you have any idea how much I love you?" And then he'd hold me and I'd just absolutely fall apart, and he'd say, "Do you want to shoot it now?" And I'd say, "Absolutely, let's go." And we'd go in and we'd shoot these scenes, and the two of us would be crying, and then after it would be over, he'd come over and he'd hold me, and I would calm down, and he would say, "Now that was brilliant." And he'd thank me. So he knew how to get what he needed, and he knew what he had to do to get it, and yet I didn't feel like I was being manipulated or used. I felt like it was the two of us, and I actually think it was. I really do. It's interesting. It's a very interesting relationship.
Wait here.
Dennis and I got married. Get not! You better stop saying that! We did too!
Another relationship with interesting and ambiguous undertones is the one a child star has with his or her best-known role.
The character that I played on Dennis the Menace, Margaret, was the brat, sort of the mean, dreadful little girl, the kind of little girl that boys went, "Ew!" You know, she could clear a room. It did something to my self-esteem and to my self-image that even my mother was not aware of. Years later, when she heard about it, she said, "Oh, honey, you were just acting." But I was growing up, okay? And this is, you know, how kids were treating me and the boys were treating me. And it took me a while to work through that.
Alison Arngrim played the evil Nellie Olson on Little House on the Prairie, a role for which she was sometimes attacked, literally, off the set.
I remember Santa Claus parade, and someone, they threw garbage, and I got hit right in the side of the head with a big, like, McDonald's cup of soda. And I didn't know whether to be, like, upset or really, like, complimented, because I was playing such a horrible person that when they pelted me with garbage, I was like, "Thank you, thank you." And I did. I just started doing like the wrestler thing. I would go down the street and like do this and like jeer back at them and stuff. And they seemed to like this.
Perversely, even a popular image can have an ugly backlash.
Kids have told me over the years that they were negatively compared to Bud.
Yeah.
That the father or mother would say, "Well, Bud wouldn't do that," or "Why can't you be more like Bud?" I mean, my God, really. Well,
I got a letter once from a little girl who wrote to me and told me that her daddy said he'd stop hitting her if she'd act more like me.
Oh, God.
And I was about 11.
Every time I was on the stage, I would see parents nudging their kids, you know. When my father said that she eats her spinach and drinks her milk without a battle every day, you know. And years later, I ran into women and men who had been in that audience, and they'd say, "I hated you all my life." I said, "I'm sorry about that." And they say, "I don't even like you now." It was such a trauma for them, apparently, you know.
And it's like, at what point do people recognize, you know, this is a character, this is a role, this is a job that I'm doing, you know, and conversely, for our own, you know, our own psyche, at what point do we realize, okay, that was a role, now I'm on to the next gig.
And the next unchildlike paycheck. Kids in Hollywood can make more in a week than their parents make in a year. Next, child stars and money. Child stars, their story will return.
All right. Put a smile on your face. Make the weather better. Put a smile on your face. What you wanna do, say what you wanna do.
Cleaning your teeth, protecting against plaque and tartar buildup, and prevention of gingivitis is crucial. You got that, Aline? Regular use of Dentabone has been clinically shown to reduce gingivitis. Just look at the difference it made in these two dogs. I recommend Dentabone from Pedigree.
You want incredible color.
But you also want incredible hair.
Intense color, lasting color.
Color that loves your hair.
It's not impossible, it's Hydrian's. Incredible color that's incredibly gentle. It's no ordinary color.
This unique water-based color cream hydrates your hair with pure permanent color.
Nothing penetrates deeper. To last longer.
But hydrants won't shock your hair.
So you get
color that's rich
and shining. Indulge your hair with Clairol Hydrians.
Incredible color that's incredibly gentle.
Pension agent with your mouse, the perfect one to sell your house.
CaldwellBanker.com.
Pension agent with your mouse, the perfect one to sell your house. CaldwellBanker.com. Personal retriever. Personal retriever.
Caldwell Banker.
CaldwellBanker.com. Start here. Sell happy. CaldwellBanker.com.
Now you can subscribe to Biography magazine for almost 50% off the newsstand price. 12 issues for only $19.97. Call 1-800-901-2233 to order Biography magazine.
5 years ago, 2 eager CEOs started their own companies. One encouraged his employees to read the Wall Street Journal to stay ahead of the competition. The other did not.
All right, let's keep working. Come on, Bill. 24.
Let's join them for their 5-year anniversaries and see what happened.
You guys are incredible. These past 5 years have been amazing.
Thanks for enduring the pay cuts and the loss of benefits.
But we've been even more successful than I could have hoped.
To 5 more years of this.
Imagine what the Journal could do for you. It's now easier to get the Journal to help you. Get 8 weeks of the Wall Street Journal for just 37 cents a day. That's 50% off the regular rate. Call 800-603-1500. That's 800-603-1500. The Wall Street Journal. Adventures in Capitalism.
I'm Hayley Mills. We now return to child stars, their story. Fame, one of the frenzied obsessions of our media-driven age. The roots of our interest and hunger for fame may well lie in childhood. There's nothing kids crave quite so much as attention. Having someone notice them, see what they can do, fuss over their talent and skill. Fame, of course, is a strange kind of attention, at once overheated and impersonal, stimulating and inhibiting. It can overwhelm anyone, especially a kid, and child stars respond to it in ambivalent and dissimilar ways.
I guess I just kind of liked the fame part of it. I mean,
Really?
I liked being
who
known.
wouldn't? I hated it.
A bit,
I hate it.
No.
Well, you perceived it as disingenuous.
I perceived it as disingenuous,
I
yeah.
liked it.
And I don't like being manipulated.
I like people coming up to me and talking
I know,
to me.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
We don't.
It's
like
hard
that.
to describe it whether I liked it or not because
It's just not you knew.
That's
Right,
it.
and
Yes.
I sensed that.
Yes.
Fame is such a drug. It's something that we can't live with and we can't live without. And we want it and we hate it. But you call me to come before the camera and here I am, you know. Hello, I'm Johnny Whitaker from Family Affair. I mean, you know, it comes right back to that.
When you are famous, there's this idea that's sort of fed to you that everything you do is really important and that, you know, everything is sort of heightened. Your safety is heightened and your choices are heightened and more scrutinized, and you start to feel like people are logging all your choices.
I have found it far easier to deal with people I don't know in the public who come up and talk to me, or people who quasi, know me,
Yes.
but they've got that agenda. And I don't consider it giving up. I have decided to take a point of view that says, well, for whatever reason, God sent this person today to tell me how swell I am.
There you go.
Because yesterday I told myself what I'm sure of.
Yeah. A big part of fame involves dealing with fans. Kids who are well known for a single role sometimes face a Chinese water torture of dumb questions and annoying remarks.
I would always get, "Hey Wally, where's Eddie?" Or, "Hey Wally, where's the beef?" Or, any of those stupid kind of comments. And you've heard them all. And it's odd because if you respond if you don't respond, of course, you're being a schmuck and you're, stuck up. And if you respond by saying, shut up, I don't want to hear that, you're really a jerk. And But I don't know anybody who likes being yelled at.
Hey, where's your bear? I probably was asked when I was a kid, hey, where's your bear? Probably 10,000 times. But God bless them, if that's the only question they can ask me, I'd rather be me than them.
I've never once felt like an outcast because people recognize me. I felt, what an icebreaker. I mean, I go to a party, and essentially, it is the same thing as if I were to burst into flames. When people go, whoa, look at that. You know, you don't have to come up with the first thing to say. People, people come up to me and speak to me, and people say nice things to me everywhere I go. I grew up with you. You were great.
The cool thing about being recognizable is the fact that people feel like they know you. You know, and I was fortunate enough to play a part. You know, I don't know if Jason Hervey, who played my brother on The Wonder Years, has the same experiences. You know, everyone hated him, you know? But, you know, I was fortunate to play a part where people really liked him. And so, you know, just being recognized, and you feel like there's just this warm embrace waiting for you wherever you go.
I was in the hospital, and some person threw open the door and took my picture. What do you think you're doing? I was outraged, appalled, you know, called the nurse, told my problem, blah, 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 blah. The person had the audacity to come back with a Pentel and get me to autograph it, and I did.
How come you're still up?
I was trying to balance the budget.
But we've been making a fortune.
Along with fame, of course, comes fortune. As in, a fortune. At least for those child stars who hit it big. Melissa Gilbert ultimately made $75,000 a week on Little House on the Prairie. Oscar nominee Haley Joel Osment of The Sixth Sense now commands $2 million a film.
Dad! No, it's not that, Dad.
Kids may be pulling down 5-figure weekly salaries, but that doesn't mean they've got a lot of spending cash.
When I was a kid, I was on allowance. Our allowance was the grade that you were in, you know? So 7th grade, you get $7 a week. And I just remember, like, my guys on the set, like, always trying to convince my mom, like, give me, like, $10 a week, you know? Like, come on, Joanne, like, give Fred, like, give him a bump.
I wasn't allowed to touch my money. Are you kidding me? There's no way. My mom wouldn't let me do that. Are you kidding me? My mom was like, no, which made a lot of sense. I did my share, you know, of course, when I was over 18, you know, then my mom can't control me, you know, and by then I was mentally unstable, so, you know, and it caught up with me.
My mother would drag me, kicking and screaming, to meetings with my accountant and business managers. I mean, she was really clear on, hey, I am not going to be responsible for messing up your finances. You're going to come to these meetings and you are going to know what kind of money you're making. You're going to know where your money is going. And at 14 years old, I didn't want to deal with that. But I tell you, at 30 years old, I am so grateful for my mother making sure that as a kid, I knew everything that was going on in my business.
Dad.
Hey, fellas, what's in the paper sack? Looks kind of heavy.
Well, we got our money in there, Dad. Yeah, today's bank day. We're going to take it down and put it in our school bank account. Gee, Dad, we almost got $32 in there. Yeah, we counted it twice.
Incredibly, until 1936, parents were free to do what they pleased with 100% of the money a child star earned. In some cases, kids who've made a fortune have had little to show for it when they turned 18. Shirley Temple got a few $1,000s and the deed to her backyard dollhouse when she came of age. Jackie Coogan, who earned $4 million as a young star, had to sue his parents to recover the remnants of his fortune. The Coogan case prompted lawmakers in California to adopt the Coogan law, requiring parents to put 15% of a child's earnings in a trust. That didn't help Gary Coleman, whose parents hired themselves as his employees and drew salaries that wiped out a good chunk of his $18 million.
Gary Coleman was lucky. Let's see, he worked for 9 years, made $18 million. His parents were rich, his lawyers were rich, his agent was rich, his business manager was rich, and Gary works as a security guard. What's wrong with this picture?
How does it feel to have the most successful film of the year?
Oh, it's great, yeah.
Macaulay Culkin is another example, whose parents were accused of mismanaging his finances and spent a fortune in a bitter custody fight for their kids. In reality, the golden allure of a child star is deceptively bright.
When we were doing the series, I assumed, that I was making kind of nice money. But I was too afraid to ask. And the worst scenario came to be true. When I was 18, there was nothing left.
The day I turned 18, I knew I had money coming to me. I rushed down to downtown Los Angeles, filled out all the paperwork I had to fill out, and I got a big duffel bag full of Series E double E bonds. I was 18 years old. I had $90,000 in my hand. That was cool. I mean, that was super. $90,000 right in my hand. It didn't last long.
Johnny Whitaker didn't feel quite so great about the $90,000 when he found out a few years later that, according to Screen Actors Guild records, he'd earned nearly $1 million as a child star.
My eyes were opened because 90,000 is less than 10% of $1 million. It's a lot less. My parents said, or my mother said, do you see furs? Do you see Mercedes and Cadillacs? The money that we spent went into the family. My sister graduated from college and was on her way and had kids and was happy. And, I couldn't disagree that I couldn't say that it was used frivolously or wrongly, but in retrospect, I think I should have had something more than what I did.
The money just went. Between 24 and 25, 1924 and 1925, we went from a mansion with horses and stables and cars to a rented house off of Melrose without a dime. We were destitute. Everyone was told that I was an heiress. I was pretending I was an heiress of my own money when I was 16 and 17 years of age. The greatest acting performance of my entire life, for which I got no credit.
Wealth isn't the only facade child stars sometimes have to maintain. Up next, dating and the prime-time loneliness of the child star. Child stars, their story will return.
I can't close my eyes.
If you do one thing, you've done something. Come see what a Land Rover Discovery is made of.
Both these guys woke up with a cold this morning, but not to worry. There are two very special Tylenol cold formulas for adults and for children. Each with the proven trusted relief to feel better fast.
Shall we get sick again tomorrow, Dad?
Tylenol Cold. Take comfort in our strength.
When someone's got a problem shooting, I'm the guy they call. I've been studying the mechanics of a perfect basketball shot for 20 years. Fingertips on the ball. When it comes to investing, I look for a mutual fund that takes the same analytical approach. Take the shot.
With in-depth research and investment expertise, Oppenheimer Main Street Growth and Income Fund has outperformed the S&P 500 index over the past 10 years.
Science is important, but it doesn't hurt to have a feel for the game.
Oppenheimer Funds, the right way to invest.
Tomorrow on Biography. He grew up down under, feeling unattractive and insecure.
I used to play with my back to the audience.
But when he found the popularity he craved, he lost his credibility.
And I remember thinking, oh my God, is that it?
Rick Springfield as Hitmakers Week begins on an all-new Biography. Tomorrow on A&E.
Have you noticed? There's a colorful new breed out there. It's a fast breed, a smarter breed of inkjet printer. But don't worry, they're easy to spot. And at $99, just as easy to catch. Xerox, just a smarter breed of inkjet printer, now available everywhere.
I'm Hayley Mills. We now return to Child Stars, their story.
You boys have a hard day at school today? Gee, Mom, every day's hard at school.
The hardest part is waiting for 3 o'clock.
The hardest part of school for child stars could be the hazing they get from other kids. Or the pressure of handling schoolwork on top of a full-time acting job. Or the challenge of pretty much having to teach themselves, alone, without even a tutor on the set.
How do you expect to get into college with grades like this?
No problem.
Huh?
See, I'm not going to college.
Damn right.
High school was by correspondence,
Right.
mostly. I did go sometimes the first couple of years. And of course, it was a non-education because in New York at the time, you know these rules.
Yes, I know these rules.
There were no rules.
That's right.
There was no tutor. There was precious little time available to do the work. And, you know,
If there was no tutor,
you can
then
do
who-
history, maybe English, but calculus?
Yeah.
If there was no tutor, then what, I mean, how did you...
I did the best I could.
Just in a room by yourself?
Yeah.
In California, acting kids have to squeeze in 3 hours of tutoring on the set per day, frequently broken up into 20-minute chunks to accommodate shooting.
There was a PA who was on my tail every second of every day. I mean, I'd go to the bathroom and he'd be there timing it, you know, because time was so important.
We had, you know, the Different Strokes kids, the Facts of Life girls, Rick Schroeder from Silver Spoons, and Jason Bateman, Alfonso was in their room, Glenn Scarpelli, who was on One Day at a Time at the time. So it was just like, that's like surreal, you know. And, you know, as you go out for recess, there's the Universal Tour going by.
For kids who are serious about acting, being yanked into a classroom immediately after rehearsing a 10-page scene can be infuriating.
While the other actors go to their trailers or go to their chairs and open their scripts and really start kind of defining the little nuances that they want to put in this scene that they're going to shoot in a half an hour or whenever it gets lit. You're a minor, you're thrown into a trailer outside where you are immediately commanded to forget that and do your math. And when you're doing it in 20-minute increments and the first assistant or second assistant director is standing outside that little trailer going, "Can we have Billy? No, it's only been 17 minutes. You got to wait 3 minutes," right? Which is what I lived with during all of those years. I hated it.
I got a D in history. Mom said 1D and I was off the basketball team. That's why you can't show her your report card. Hey, I got straight A's. Well, that's your problem.
If studying on the set is vexing, going to public school as the star of a hit series, having to deal with the curiosity and hostility of other kids can also pose problems.
School is funny. I would have people put hate notes in my locker, you know, like Walton Girl Go Home, or just like silly things. I would walk down the hallway at school and people would yell out, "John Boy, fetch a pail of water."
Kids would say things like, you know, "Hey, Timmy, you know, where's your bone?" And I just little things that, you know, I just kind of, you know, I was like a duck, though. It just rolled right off because I had some insight into that, you know, they just don't understand.
I just always felt when I went back to school that I had to be as normal as possible and do anything anybody else was doing. It's sort of like no favors. You know, you could sit here, "Oh, why don't you come up here?" No, it's okay. You know, whatever everybody else is doing. If they had to run track and go around 50 times, I was going 50 times or 51.
Until my senior year of high school, my last full year uninterrupted because of working was second grade. So, like, I mean, every year between then was interrupted for some period of time. So when the 1 year's ended, when I looked at my life, I'm like, God, like, now I get to really just have a blast. So like I went to high school, I did everything I always wanted to do. Like I was on the football team, like I was in the school musical, you know, I ran for class president. Like, I mean, everything I did, you know, I made announcements at assembly, you know, like everything I always wanted to do, like I got to go do, and I was so excited to have those experiences.
Ironically, kids who served as symbols of childhood or teen life for their time were sometimes themselves completely out of sync with their peers.
I was America's teenager. I was America's sweetheart teenager. I didn't have a clue about what being a teenager was in our society. I had a grown-up's point of view. When I would have to dance on the show, the whole opening credits, that they had to bring in other teenagers who would teach me how to dance. And then you know, they would be in the background dancing better than me. But there were many times I was very embarrassed in front of my peers because there was a freakishness to me. I mean, I just lived differently than they did. And I wanted so to be a part of their world.
The freakishness of the child star, of not really belonging to a group of peers, can get quite painful as kids come of age. Child star teens face the maddening irony of a popular image and an empty dance card.
Well, I wish I didn't have so many freckles. I look like I have the measles.
Erin, you are a very, very pretty girl. Everybody else thinks so. You ought to think so, too.
High school was hard because nobody ever asked me out. And I never went to a prom or homecoming from my own high school. And it was pretty pathetic. I mean, I would sit at home and cry. Years later, someone told me that they thought of asking me out, and I said, well, why didn't you ever ask me out? I was sitting home alone all the time, you know, with my little sister and my parents. And he said, well, because I drove a Volkswagen and I thought I had to have a Cadillac or something.
For the prom, I took, like, you know, a friend, because nobody had asked me. It's just like, well, what's up with that, you know? And then you even resort to, well, hey, I'm on TV. Somebody ought to want me, you know? Millions and millions want me, but I can't find one that'll want me to go to the prom with them.
Real dates may have been hard to come by, but there was no shortage of staged romance for some child stars.
I don't know if they still do the phony dating thing, but back in the 60s, it was very big. They had me set up with Tony Dow, who everybody knows from Leave It to Beaver, Don Grady from My Three Sons, Johnny Crawford from The Rifleman, Paul Peterson from The Donna Reed Show. And we would be at a restaurant or whatever, and then they would take the pictures, and then they would put it in, you know, these magazines and say that, you know, we were out on a date, when in fact we weren't really on a date at all. I mean, sometimes I was kind of hoping that we were, because I had a crush on a lot of those guys.
And I'm never, ever gonna marry you again, Dennis Mitchell.
Being saddled with a creepy role like Margaret on Dennis the Menace or the mean and devious Nellie on Little House on the Prairie made dating even more difficult.
Most teenage boys and young men did really not find Nellie Olson sexually attractive. And people did not really want to be seen with Nellie Olson. They did not want to go out with Nellie Olson. And then you have to think about someone who did want to have sex with Nellie Olson. How incredibly freak, creepy, would this person have to be to intentionally go ask out Nellie? So it was like Weirdo Brigade. So it was like, hi, do you watch the show? Goodbye.
There's nothing to be nervous about. Just go ahead and call her up.
Sure. Just tell her who you are and get a little line on her.
Girls weren't the only showbiz kids having a hard time landing a date.
And a lot of the Wally stories dealt with adolescence and going through that awkward stage with girls, and the first date and how to behave, and when you're invited over and you're sitting on the couch, you know, how do you get from there to the arm, you know, how do you do that? He never figured it out, and consequently, I never figured it out, so I think that's as close a parallel as you can get. He was about as dumb and bad at that sort of stuff as I was. That's the part of the social stuff that you miss, the making out in the hallways at school or under the bleachers at the football field.
Here I was, a successful child actor, pretty funny, good student, an athlete. All my ducks were basically in a row to have confidence. And yet I had no confidence, you know, like with the ladies. And I don't know how to explain it. I felt like I had the uglies.
Not all child stars, of course, are so shy. Danny Bonaducci of the Partridge Family is one who made the most of his success.
Dating is one of the things I always said was wonderful about being the guy from the Partridge Family. I was short, fat, with red hair and freckles, and I took 2 cheerleaders to the prom. Show business has its good points.
Most kids can't wait to be 18. For child stars, it can be the end of the line. Coming up, growing up, and finding out whether no longer being a child means no longer being a star. Child Stars, Their Story will return on A&E.
Vacation truth number 56. Even a short line is too long. At Alamo, we know. With new Quick Rent, anyone can rent online and skip the line. No waiting, no worries. Drive happy.
Got milk?
Well, that's a silly question.
If you've already got milk, get out the Hershey syrup.
See, now this commercial I like. Oh, yeah.
Come on, Dad. You promised to ski with us. You're bumming us out, Dad.
Looks like you could use Halls. Only Halls has vapor action. Breathe, my friend. Breathe. Breathe, my pasty friend.
Feeling better, Dad?
Well, I was.
Try new strawberry Halls and get going.
What if you could reverse an effect of aging on your dog's immune system? Feed him IAMS Active Maturity Formula after age 5. It's the first dog food shown to help restore vital cells in his immune system. So you can shape what tomorrow brings. IAMS. Good for today, good for tomorrow, good for life.
Target Stars on Ice. No rules and no Russian judges. This time, the best in the world skate their way for a night of pure passion with the power of Olympic gold. Champions Scott Hamilton, Tara Lipinski, Christy Yamaguchi, and more. Target Stars on Ice, February 27th, only on A&E.
One man would kill for control. The other would die for his freedom. Lorna Doone premieres March 11th on A&E.
Because you won. Because the road is unpredictable. Because laughter is contagious. From cover to cover, Biography magazine reveals why every life has a story. In the February issue, Catherine Zeta-Jones, plus a look at TV funny ladies, profiles of Robert De Niro, Walt Disney, and more. Biography magazine. Every life has a story. On sale now at your local newsstand.
Shifts up. What do I need to know?
Let's see. Lakers are up by 3 in the fourth quarter. You got a low-pressure system brewing in the northeast. The emergency room's in chaos because of a bus accident. Rebel forces are under attack, and Paige is carrying John's baby, but she doesn't know because she has amnesia.
Good shift.
Good shift.
We love this stuff, even more than you do. Now get the best in home entertainment with a $200 mail-in rebate.
Two eager CEOs. One encouraged his employees to read the Wall Street Journal. The other did not. Let's join them for their 5-year anniversaries and see what happened. Imagine what the Journal could do for you. It's now easier to get the Journal to help you. Get 8 weeks of the Wall Street Journal for just 37 cents a day. That's 50% off the regular rate. Call 800-443-7400. That's 800-443-7400. For the Wall Street Journal.
I'm Hayley Mills. We now return to Child Stars, Their Story. There's something finite built into the very notion of the child star. Even the most successful labor in the shadow of a huge question. What will happen when they grow older, change physically, are no longer so cute? What happens when the child star is no longer a child?
Hey, Kim, what are you thinking about?
I'm trying to hold it together over here. Talk to somebody else.
Oh, no. Oh, you can never find a crowd more sympathetic. Believe me, kiddo.
Yes, we remember.
I just understand, obviously, you know, and the idea of reinventing yourself and acting like that whole life didn't exist.
Right. That's the problem.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they don't give you credit for the last job. They don't.
Yeah.
The lifespan of the child star is roughly equivalent to that of a dog, Diana Sarah Carey, the former Baby Peggy, once wrote. Baby Peggy was over the hill in Hollywood by the age of 6, and all child stars have to wonder whether an unexpected growth spurt or the arrival of a pimple is the beginning of the end. When he turned 14, Barry Livingston of My Three Sons tried to disguise the fact that his voice was beginning to change.
Fred DeCordova, who was the director of our show at that time, took me into the hallway and he says, Barry, he says, you gotta lower your voice now. You know, you gotta talk in your real voice because, you know, that little Minnie Mouse voice you're using is kind of strange and unnatural and it's kind of annoying. So I was like, oh gosh, you know, there was a brief moment there where I went, boy, I wonder if I could do this. You know, I wonder if I can actually do that.
Transition is a dirty word for child stars. A time when they find out exactly how much of their early success they can expect to maintain.
My transition was brutal. It took 3 years to go completely in the toilet. That's what it took. In 1966, I worked 16 weeks. 67, I worked 8 weeks. 68, I worked 4 weeks. And in 1969, I didn't work at all.
When I was 18, I had slimmed down. I had new headshots. I looked good, but it was really like starting completely over. I'd go in for an interview, and they'd say, well, what did you do last year? And I said, well, I didn't do anything last year, but from like 1959 through 1964, this is all the stuff I did. And they said, well, that doesn't count. And I could not make sense of that. I did not understand that at all at the time.
People used to come up to me on the street in Hollywood when I was a teenager and say, you used to be so darling. My, how you've changed. And I didn't know what to say, you know. And when I went in to pick up some portraits of myself as an adult star, I hoped, and the clerk who took my money said, how does it feel to be a has-been at 16? And I thought there was no answer for that one either, you know.
Do you remember The Last Emperor, that Burt Bertolucci film? Here was this darling child with, you know, the robes and the gold out to here, this little ruler and no country to rule. Well, you know, that's kind of like what can happen to a child actor. You know, everything about you has been geared to something that is no longer in existence.
Get your identity back. Do something else. Become a waiter. Sell real estate. I don't think that a grown man or woman's identity is ever surrounded by something they did at 12. It's just not that important. I've done better things with my life. I've done far more important and better things with my life and my time than be Danny Partridge.
That's my biggest gripe, that I see some child actors and people that I know, and they're very bitter, but then I go, well, what did you do anything to help yourself, you know, develop as an actor? Because, you know, you can't just go there and just be cute anymore, because you're not, for one thing, you know. You're just different.
Everybody's looking at you, so it's an inhibiting kind of an atmosphere to grow up in. So my theory is that a lot of times when you're making that transition to adulthood, that charming thing that you need as an actor, that charisma that you need, it really hasn't had time to develop because you haven't had the ability to try things, and you've kept a lot of emotions inside.
I don't audition.
Good for you.
I won't do it either. I won't do it either. I don't audition, not because I don't believe in the process.
You're just not very good at it.
That's it. There you go. Why am I not good at it? I had to find out. And I found out that I'm not good at it because I so resent.
Yeah, you go in there with hate and you're dripping.
I've had to reinvent myself time and time again, because I've got to fight, you know, an executive who is excited as all get out to meet me because, you know, he had a crush on Tootie. I had one executive, bless his little heart. I had one executive that was so excited to meet me because when he was 15, he wanted to do Tootie. What? And at the same time, he can't get past the fact that I was that. Now, I've evolved as a person, as an actor, as an artist, and quite capable of handling this project. And he's still caught up in meeting Tootie.
For my first number, I would like to grin at you.
Former child stars who can't continue as actors have to develop other careers.
I was a good waiter. I worked hard. I picked up shifts. I was a good waiter. But people, there was just this like, oh. And they looked at him and they're like, oh, I can't believe I'm going to order this to Danny Partridge. And then some people were out and out mean. Some people just wanted to revel in my failure. Hey, Partridge, Mr. Movie Star, my soup's cold. So at times it was odd. And, you know, when I was living on the streets, it was weird. I used to sit in front of Grauman's Chinese, signing autographs, leaning up against my car, and people had no idea that I lived in it. That after signing their autograph, I was going to pull around the corner and go to sleep. So that was odd. Being famous and homeless was odd.
Hi, my name is John. I'm an addict and an alcoholic.
Drug and alcohol abuse can make the transitional phase that much rougher.
Being in show business is not the reason that I was an addict. I'm an addict because I was born that way. However, I don't believe alcoholism and drug addiction would have been there as strongly had I not been a child actor.
The reason why I didn't work was because I put myself out of work. The offers were coming in, but I was too high to do it. You understand what I mean? I wasn't going to go. I would disappear for 6, 7 months at a time.
In the 1980s, Todd Bridges and Danny Bonaducci became poster boys for the image of the child star gone bad.
A lot of people say, and that's when I turned to drugs. They canceled my show and nobody wanted me anymore and I wasn't cute anymore. And that's when the trouble started. Well, when I went to rehab, I was the only ex-child star there. But there were 9 dentists. Nobody asked these guys, do you think your problem started from being an ex-child dentist? There's a problem in this country and it's Johnny can't read, not Johnny has his own show.
If having your own show isn't the problem, neither is it a charm guaranteed to bring a happy life. Anissa Jones from Family Affair and Dana Plato from Different Strokes overdosed on drugs. Rusty Hamer from Make Room for Daddy killed himself. Many child stars feel they know why.
There was just no life after show business. There was nothing that they could do in their lives that would even equal what they had achieved in their past. It was like a haunting.
We have a bond, those of us who grew up in the industry, that no one could ever understand. And we all have such a similar experience, and we were all on the same path. And over the years and years and years that all of us grew up on different shows, there's something similar. There's a through line. You're aware of so much, and you're exposed to so much before you probably should be. And you've got to sort it out. And you never want to admit that you don't know how to sort it out. So I have always felt like I've had to dance as fast as I can so I don't disappoint anybody, so I never let anybody down. And so I didn't seem like I didn't know what I was doing.
Dancing as fast as they can, child stars often grow up performing to keep themselves and their sense of themselves intact. Theirs is a difficult dance, half giddy, half anxious. A dance that takes place somewhere between innocence and commerce. A dance that both gives and demands a lot.
People don't get the pressure. They think that we should just be so happy, you know, to be on TV and to have all this money and this, that, and the other. And they don't understand that there's pressure that comes with that, and pressure that is not natural for young people to have.
My journey has been such a wonderful one, and it's a journey that I would not trade for anything in the world.
Lost in Space, I loved being that guy. I'd still be that guy now. I would. I'd go back to that character anytime.
There's nothing wrong with being rich and famous. The trouble is, it's like going out to an expensive dinner. Everybody gets a bill.
I think that I was fortunate in just being in an environment that allowed me to focus on something I was passionate about most of the time, and I think that most people don't get that until they're older.
Great childhood. But then that childhood was hard to live up to.
Troubles that I've had developing or feeling good about myself, I can't really nail on being a kid actor. I think, for me personally, thank God, that I had that. I'm really glad about that now that I'm older.
My experience was definitely too much too fast. But now that I look back on it, I'm glad it was too much too fast. Because I'm 25 now and I've got nothing but good to look forward to.
I was an icon, I'm not an antique, I'm a collectible.
Interestingly, despite the ups and downs, none of the people interviewed for this show expressed ultimate regrets about having been a child star. And even those with the roughest stories have come to value, if not embrace, their past.
Baby Peggy and I had a very stormy relationship for a very long time. But when I reached a point sometime in my 30s, I realized that she really was a friend of mine. She wasn't an adversary. She wasn't an enemy. She had done what she'd done the best she could do. I sort of psychologically incorporated her into my own ego, and we lived together very comfortably. I like her, I'm proud of her, and I'm pleased that she's happy now, because she didn't have a very happy childhood.
What would I have missed if I had not been a child actor? Again, you're getting this answer from someone who has survived. I would have missed everything. But for what matters to me in life, I've been given a great gift. And I would have paid the price again. The kid would have liked it to be a lot easier than it was. But the trade-off, definitely worth it.
The trade-off, of course, is different for every child star. As they grow up before our eyes, one can't help but wonder how they will turn out. These kids who are so lucky in some ways, not so lucky in others. What will become of them? What will they be and do as adults? So what are they up to now? The former child stars who shared their stories with us in this documentary. Melissa Gilbert is a wife, mother, actor, producer, director. Lucas Haas performs in a rock band and will be appearing in John Steinbeck's The Pearl with Richard Harris.
Let me tell you something, wise guy.
Bill Gray is an inventor who developed the F1 guitar pick. Todd Bridges is clean and sober, an actor, producer, husband and father.
Adults and children made a lot more mistakes than Lassie did.
John Provost is a real estate agent and is writing his autobiography. Paul Peterson advocates for kid actors through his group, A Minor Consideration. Diana Sarah Carey has enjoyed a successful second career as a historian and author. Angela Cartwright is an author, photographer, actress, and internet retail entrepreneur.
And how did he propose when he finally got around to it?
Danny Bonaducci is happily married and a successful morning drive time radio personality in Los Angeles. When she isn't kissing Jerry Mathers, Veronica Cartwright continues to act, appearing on The X-Files and Will and Grace. Johnny Whittaker hosts a radio talk show with his psychiatrist, Dr. Zod.
These people were clapping and yelling, and I realized this is my calling.
Malcolm Jamal Warner starred in and produced the Malcolm and Eddie TV series. Bill Mumy is writer-producer of the sci-fi film Overload, which stars many former child actors. Tony Dow is a full-time director of TV shows. He's also directing Overload, in which he appears.
My goodness, Dennis Mitchell!
Jeannie Russell is now Dr. Russell, a chiropractor in North Hollywood. Alison Arngrim acts and is an advocate for people living with AIDS. Jackie Cooper enjoyed a long career as an actor, director, producer, and is now retired. Johnny Crawford leads a vintage-style dance band. Patty Duke acts and lives on a ranch in Idaho with her husband.
Read 'em and weep.
Kim Fields acts and runs a production company called Victory Productions. Sarah Gilbert majored in art history at Yale and now appears in feature films.
I just go with the flow. I go with the plan that's unfolding, and I have no worries about tomorrow.
David Faustino is currently undergoing, in his own words, a complete and total spiritual transformation. Clint Howard is an avid golfer and a successful character actor. Stanley Livingston is a freelance director who is working on a kids' TV show for PBS about a clown. Mary McDonough wrote and directed the short film For the Love of May and also produced a daughter, Sydney.
You never know what's going to happen in life.
Margaret O'Brien continues to appear in films and on stage. Jerry Mathers is a corporate spokesman and businessman involved with healthcare issues dealing with diabetes. Paddy McCormack does theatre in LA and recently appeared in ER and The Sopranos. Barry Livingston has a folk rock band called the Livingstons and appears on shows like Ally McBeal and the Huleys.
It wasn't lollipops like Tiddlywinks, you know.
Fred Savage is a recent Stanford graduate. Beverly Washburn lives in Las Vegas and appears in commercials. Whatever else they do and achieve in their lives, former child stars will, to some extent, always be remembered and perceived as former child stars. The little charmers who made it big in Hollywood are permanently fixed as kids in the public eye through reruns and videos. Forever young, they must forever come to terms with both the larger-than-life image of who they were and the ever-evolving reality of who they are.
Officers continuing the pursuit on the ground. The truck is crossing all lanes. He's turning off. He's spinning out. Patrol units have a block. Suspect moving. Suspect moving.
Can't get enough peanuts? Get a Payday. Sweet caramel and tons of salty peanuts.
Over the past 65 years, Chevy Suburban has come a very long way. Introducing the best Suburban yet. The all-new Chevy Suburban. Like a rock.
Can you tell the difference between these contact lenses? They're the same brand, the same prescription, but this lens costs 50% less and can be delivered right to your home. That's the Lens Express difference. Call now for your free Lens Express catalog.
Next on Biography. This preschool prodigy became queen of the box office, earning $1,000 a week by age 6. But when she outgrew her tutus and tap shoes, she matured into a player on the global stage. Shirley Temple, only on Biography. Next on A&E.
Yo, you know who led the league in assists last year? Should have been you, yo. No doubt, boo, no doubt. Yo, I gotta show these suckers how to play this game. Let them know. A lot of these beat ballers don't be realizing that passing be your art, kid. I got the flavor that you savor. Watch my Jerry Stackhouse, no-look confusion maker. Hey, Utah, there's a little something we call style.
What do you look for in an automotive dealership? First, the right dealership will offer you a quality product for the best price. Second, the right dealership will offer you the best selection around. And third, the right dealership will treat you with respect. At Red Holman Pontiac GMC, we know building solid relationships with customers will take us a long way. After all, we've been doing it for over 43 years. Red Holman Pontiac GMC will always do what's right.
A&E Home Video proudly presents the Biography program you've just seen for $29.95 plus shipping and handling. To order, call 1-800-423-1212 or visit our online store at biography.com. Now, from Hollywood to the White House, she's America's little princess, Shirley Temple, on Biography Special, next on A&E.
A&E. Escape the ordinary. Tomorrow on Biography. He grew up down under, feeling unattractive and insecure.
I used to play with my back to the audience.
But when he found the popularity he craved, he lost his credibility.
And I remember thinking, oh my God, is that it?
Rick Springfield as Hitmakers Week begins on an all-new Biography. Tomorrow on A&E. One man would kill for control. The other would die for his freedom. Lorna Doone premieres March 11th on A&E.
Biography Special, brought to you in part by Sun America. From A&E, this is Biography. For February 18th, 2001, Biography with Peter Graves.
Shirley Temple was Hollywood's smallest actress and its biggest star. There have been many other child actors before and since, but none that could match her worldwide popularity. When she turned 6 years old, Shirley Temple was showered with more than 100,000 presents from her fans around the world. And while other kids her age were in first grade, she was the #1 box office attraction in America. And yet every day after filming scenes with Hollywood's biggest names, Shirley's mother insisted that she go home and play with the other kids on the block, an attempt to keep her as unspoiled and normal as possible. The effort paid off. Unlike so many other child stars who struggle later in life, Shirley Temple went on to a second career as a diplomat, and she was great at it. I met her the first time at the White House when she was chief of protocol for President Ford, and she immediately put all the guests at ease. With her warmth and charm, it seemed that she was born to make people comfortable. Shirley Temple is now 72 years old and has led an incredibly full life, but on film, she remains the irresistible little girl with pin curls.
When I grow up in a year or 2 or 3, I'll be happy as can be, like a birdie in the tree. When I grow up, there's a lot I want to do. I will have real dollies too, like the woman in the shoe.
She was a sharp little girl. Everything about her was perfect. She's what you call a perfect 10.
You gotta eat your spinach, baby.
No, 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 I'm singing to ya. No, 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 hallelujah, spinach, stay away from my door.
Her songs, her dancing, they made millions and millions of Americans feel good about themselves.
Ho, 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 ho.
Ho, 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 ho.
Shirley always sparkled. She just bubbled. It was not put on. There was just something magical about her.
Everybody wants to know who's that great big handsome Romeo. I present you right now. Daddy, take a bow.
She was good-natured, cheerful, irrepressible, and she knew at every moment exactly what she was doing.
Everything that we all roll into one. That can't stop you, Shirley Temple.